boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome to the review of The Boys Season 4, Episode 7, The Insider, which is the penultimate episode of this season. We have one episode remaining, and traditionally, the penultimate episode sets up the epic season finale of the season, where all of our questions are kind of filtered or bottlenecked into one episode, not necessarily answering the questions, but setting you up for the answers, whether you like them or not. But this is the episode of every series, at least supposedly, where we get all of the setup for a season finale. And the boys did an excellent job with The Insider, episode 7. When we last left off in episode 6, Victoria Newman had this rousing speech to the top 1% of the 1%. And we had the Tech 9 reveal of there was a lot of reveals with Tech 9 in the previous episode, but the reveal of his involvement in this coup. We had Frenchie still in prison. He turned himself in for the crimes he committed in the past. He's refusing to see Kimiko. And then the big daddy of them all was the Butcher reveal. Even though a lot of people knew that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character was a figment of his imagination, it was how it was revealed that was so shocking and exciting to watch. And so you had all that going on, and also the revelation that the V virus that I keep forgetting the guy's name, the one that Butcher has locked up with the one leg, he says the only compound that would be strong enough to kill Homelander would trigger a global pandemic, killing all of the Supes, all of them, not just the 7, but Starlight, Kimiko, and God knows who else, and Ryan as well. So now Butcher is in a moral dilemma, and this is where we left off in episode 6. So episode 7, The Insider. What is it that we can expect in this episode? Well, just like we expected in the previous 6 episodes, as well as the previous 4 seasons, or 3 seasons, I should say, pure greatness. This show does not disappoint, and this episode did not disappoint. The episode begins on the set of a Christmas special with puppets, and in their puppet versions of the 7, and it starts off with a train version of a puppet, and he's talking to Ryan. This is a show with Ryan, one of one of their ways to try to put Ryan out there to the public. And you have the A-Train puppet talking to Ryan about Antifa, before singing a song that tells the audience to report them to their parents, So Ryan stops the show. He calls cut, and questions the show's morals, before the director tells him that the lyrics were approved by his father, who we all know is Homelander. And so this is the first step in Ryan's, I guess you could say, turn, because we saw Ryan was a couple of episodes ago when he just demoralized that director, not the director of this Christmas special, but the other director, who was a creeper, and had the personal assistant slap him and belittle him and all this here. And Ryan enjoyed that. He was becoming a younger version of Homelander. So at that point, I was like, okay, so this is where we're going. So Ryan is going to be another version of Homelander. But I guess as time went on, a couple of days or so, the good in him is starting to come out. He's still a good person because of his mother, Becca. And so he still has good in him. And later on in the episode, we see that Butcher had sent him a Christmas present, which was a picture of his mother and him, along with the dog too. But it kind of got to Ryan at this point. And so we move on to a meeting that's happening at Vault Tower, where we see Firecracker and Homelander already there. They're talking with Ashley about I don't know, stocks or something. I forgot what they were talking about. And then Sister Sage enters. And she's like, "Wait, I thought the meeting was for 11." You know? and they all just turn and look at her. Homelander kicks out Ashley, and that's when they start the tag team on Sister Sage, they being Homelander and Firecracker. And Homelander reveals that he had one of Butcher's bugs that was planted at Tech Knight's mansion, and he believes that Cameron Coleman's death was for nothing, because Homelander, let's not forget, Homelander believed that Cameron Coleman was the mole. That Sister Sage was accurate. He didn't believe that she would lie to him and whatnot. And so Firecracker tells Sage that they already losing support, involving this 25th Amendment. So Homelander informs Sage that Firecracker will be taking her place. And we know in last episode, just to recap that again, that Firecracker is now nursing Homelander, because Firecracker is taking those hormones or whatever so she can produce milk for Homelander. And so there's that. It's so that she made her power play, made her move, and she got to that position, amongst other positions that she's in for Homelander. But during this meeting, A-Train wasn't in this meeting, but we saw A-Train eavesdropping on that meeting. Another member of the Seven, the Deep, who has some issues of his own. He's kind of in a love triangle now. Well, he ain't kind of in one. He's in one. He's falling in love with Sage, but he's still in a relationship with the octopus, Ambrosia, I believe. And I didn't know until this episode that the voice of Ambrosia, the octopus, is Tilda Swinton. And I did not know that. And I was like, how did they get her on this show to provide the voice to an octopus that's in a romantic relationship with this dude? It is mind-boggling, but I love it. I love it. I love her voice performance. Her voiceover performance is excellent here. They are having an intimate moment, laying in the bed together, and suddenly the Deep gets a text, and it's from Sage. And Sage basically sent him a booty call text, and he was out of there. He was up and out. He was, because he's starting to fall in love with Sage, and leaving poor Ambrosia to waddle in her tank. And I started at this moment, I started feeling bad for the octopus, and it gets worse later on. I'll talk about it when I get to it. And so we move on to Annie. Annie's on the phone with her mother, telling her mother that she needs to leave town, go hide out with family in Arizona somewhere. Is not safe for her. And then the mother, is berating her for the abortion thing, because she got kicked out of Bible school or Bible group or whatever, because she's the mother of a girl who had an abortion and all this other foolishness. It was just, they going down that road. But what I loved about this scene, after she got off the phone with her mother, she explains to Huey, why she got the abortion. And from her perspective, it made sense. Whether you agree with it or not, I know the abortion issue is a very, very sensitive subject, but I'm just saying what she was saying makes sense for the story, for that particular character. She didn't want to bring a child into a world that was about to end. And in the world of the boys, she's right. You know, why? Because the world is literally about to end. And so it made no sense. But we see right before that conversation, we see that Huey had saved her Starlight uh, super suit. And Starlight was moved on from that. She didn't want the suit and all this here, but Huey kept the suit. You know, he kept the suit 'cause that's a part of her. That's where I guess that's a part of her that he fell in love with, and he wanted to keep it. You know, so but she is very upset by it. You know, and because that's a part of her life she wants to move on from. And so Huey, he takes the suit, he throws it away, and that's when they have their conversation. And so we moving on to A Train. A Train apparently has followed Sage, and Sage is handing over a file to this unknown person on the street. This assassin or something, whoever it is, and A Train is taking pictures of it, and he sends it to Mother's Milk. And so Mother's Milk tells the boys about the photos, and Butcher enters the office, and he reveals that he basically tells him everything with the exception of his visions. He doesn't tell him about him speaking to Becca or to oh god, what's his name, Kessler. And so he doesn't reveal that, but he does tell him that he has the scientists locked up working on the virus, that he cut off his leg and all this here, and what the virus would do. So this upsets Chemical and Starlight, of course, but he tells him like, no, he's not gonna do it. All the while, you have Kessler telling him in his ear, that devil on his shoulder, you're messing up. Don't do this and all this here. I really like Jeffrey Dean Stanton, not Stanton, Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this role. I'm a huge fan of his anyway, but I love him in this role, especially now that we got this reveal and he can turn devilish. He's really leaning into it, and I'm loving it. I am absolutely loving it. How he's taking Butcher on this mind trip, because he, and still in the back of his head, with, lack of a better term, Butcher knows that this is part of his personality, or is it? Is it part of his personality? But he is led to believe that that is part of his personality. So whatever Kessler is saying, is got to be some truth to it, because that is part of who he is. And so there's that dilemma that Butcher is facing currently, involving Kessler and this tumor that is triggering his visions. It was all good when it was Becca, because Becca was telling him right. Now you have another element in here that is telling him everything wrong. But everything that Kessler is telling him makes sense. That Butcher would do. He would unleash this virus to kill Soups, in the past. He would be merciless to Samir. Yeah, that's his name. Samir, the scientist. Merciless to Samir. He would be these things. So it's a level of truth to all of this. But I digress. We move on in the episode, and Mother's Milk is giving his ex-wife $10,000 in tickets to Belize. Telling them that they need to go somewhere and be safe. You don't have to go there forever. You don't have to be there forever, but just until things settle down. Because in his mind, he believes that all hell is about to break loose. He's probably not going to make it out of here alive, if anybody makes it out alive. But he wants to protect them. And that was a very good scene, because him and his ex-wife, they kiss, they embrace, and she confesses to him that, I know that you would do anything to protect us. That's how I know this is serious. Otherwise I'll be like, look, you're talking crazy or whatever. But she knows he's serious, because he would not joke around with this. He wouldn't play around with this. And she wants him to come along with her, with them rather, and be a family again. And that's all Mother Milk, well, not all that he wants, but that's high on his priority list, to have his family back. And he finally gets that opportunity now. but he still is burdened by that responsibility to try to attempt to save the world, but ultimately he does decide to go with his family. Meanwhile, we have A Train. He goes to see Ashley. Ashley is drunk. She's, depressed, watching the news, and they're talking about Coleman dying of a brain aneurysm and all this here that everybody knows is a lie. He probably got his brains beat out of his head by the seven, but that's neither here nor there. And so Ashley is trying to convince A Train to flee the country with her, knowing their time is limited. They know that this once Homelander finds out who is the real Leak, they're both gonna die. They're gonna die. And so she's trying to get away, and A Train is not having it at this particular moment. Moving on to Butcher and who was it? It was Butcher, it was Starlight, and Huey, I believe. They go to find this unknown person that was meeting up with Sage earlier. They go to investigate that. So they go to the apartment. They find this woman who looked like they were battered and bruised up and all this here. And well, before they find the woman, Huey he had found a folder that has detailed plans about the plot to assassinate the president on January the 6th. Wink, wink. And so we know it's Christmas time on the show, so the time is running down. But of course, Sister Sage gave him this folder, knowing that the boys would find him, and so she knows all of this. So all this is a plant. But I found it funny that it was that they going to schedule this assassination on January the 6th. And if you don't know what January the 6th is, crawl from under that rock, people. But anyways, they find this woman who appears to be beat up and abused, and they attempt to help this woman, and come to find out she isn't who she appears to be. She attacks Huey and Starlight, as well as Butcher, runs out of the apartment. She grabs this elderly woman on the way out and continues to run. And you're like, why did she grab that woman? But she stole some clothes, but she grabbed her, and they kind of focused on the grab. And as they're running down these stairs, Huey slips on his blood. And at this point, you're like, we're halfway through this episode, and we haven't received a disgusting scene, a gory scene in The Boys yet. And normally every episode there's something. And here it was. He slips on the blood, and as they running down the stairs, they show the woman, and she's ripping off her skin as she's running. And you're like, man, what is happening right what is happening right now? And it come to find out that that is a shapeshifter. And when they finish their form, the new form, it's of that elderly woman that she touched in the building. And so that's how they transferred, their look. It is a weird transition, as we saw, in other movies before, where people just morph into different characters or people. Not this go around. This was a very disgusting and kind of a realistic way to shapeshift. It just, I didn't need to see it, but it was cool. And so we get another scene with A Train and Mother's Milk. And Mother's Milk is packing to go leave with his family to Belize. And A Train basically turns a new leaf. He confesses to Mother's Milk that, first and foremost, you go on to Belize. You think Vault and Homelander can't get to Belize? You think you're going to be safe there? How long you think you're going to be safe there? And he tells him about the little boy from the last episode when he saved Mother's Milk at the hospital, and the boy looks at him and smiles. And that gave him such a joy and he felt like an actual hero. And it changed him. It really changed him. So Frenchie and Chemical are back at the lab with Samir. Samir tricks them, stabs Chemical in the leg with the virus, and hobbles off. One leg and hobbles off. And the virus is spreading up Chemical's leg. And so, in an act of desperation, Frenchie cuts off Chemical's leg. Now, we know that she can grow it back, so it wasn't a big deal. But if it continued to grow throughout her body, it would have killed her. And so, he saws off her leg, and we got to see every single frame of it. It was like watching what was it, 27 hours later or whatever that movie was with Jane Franco. Oh my god, that's disgusting. And so he cut off the leg, and she couldn't talk, she couldn't speak. I also skipped over a scene when Chemical and Frenchie were talking, and you know she's voicing, well, not voicing, that's a bad description, but she is expressing her dismay to Frenchie at what he did. Not only locking himself up, but refusing to speak to her. But we get the reveal of why Chemical can't speak in this episode, and so she explains that she lost her voice after she murdered another girl during her first night at the Shining Light camp without making a sound. And at that moment, she lost her voice. And so Chemical confessed that she hates herself and what she had become. And Frenchie was questioning this. He was like, no, you shouldn't hate yourself. You had no choice. And she flips it on him. And like, that's the same thing I'm trying to tell you about beating yourself up over what you did in the past. So I thought that was a nice little scene. But anyway, with that leg that was cut off, now they have the virus. And so we have that. And then we get the scene that tore me up. I'm not going to lie. I never thought in a million years that I would cry in a Boys episode. I went through 4 seasons and never cried. I was excited. Probably had tears of joy. But I actually got emotional in this scene. And it was over an octopus, man. It was heartbreaking. I don't know why, but it was heartbreaking. And so Ambrosia reveals to the Deep that she knew all this time that that the Deep was having a sexual relationship with Sister Sage. And so the two get into this argument, and Ambrosia is telling Deep, like, look, you're being used by Sage. She doesn't love you. She doesn't want you. She's using you. And so this is upsetting him. She continues to tell him this. He gets so mad that he breaks her fish tank and locks her in the closet. And you have to listen to her cry for help behind this door as she suffocates to death. She can't breathe. There's no water. And it was just so heartbreaking that he did this, because he did love her until Sage came along. And I'm talking like this is this is an octopus. But it was heartbreaking. I'm telling you, man. Now, after this happened, the Deep, he pledged his full allegiance to Homeland. He was like, I'll do anything. I'll kill all the fish in the sea for you if you want. And so he sends, he being Homelander, sends the Deep and Black Noir off to kill Butcher and the boys. So we get a nice battle between the boys and the Deep and Black Noir. I mean, it was nice. It was one of those subtle scenes, It wasn't big Avenger style action, superhero fight action like that, but it was nice action contained into this office building, or just one office, and they're going at it. And I'm sitting here like, man, how are we going to get through this? How is Butcher and Starlight going to get through this? Because let's not forget, Starlight hasn't gained control of her powers yet. She hadn't got her powers back. She's still struggling. with that, so she can't defend herself. Butcher is Butcher. So there's that, and I'm like, well, they're gonna die because the Deep and Black Noir, uh, they they're beasts, man. They're supers. And just then, as they're about to, I guess, put the final kill shot on these two, A Train shows up and saves the day. A Train, I mean, he's fully in it now. It's like he's not hiding it no more. He's gonna be the hero that he wants to be, and he saves Butcher and Annie at this moment, and manages to allow Butcher and Annie to get the upper hand on those two. It was a funny scene there when Black Noir started talking, and Annie was like, "Wait, you talk?" Because she knows the old Black Noir who didn't speak, but this Black Noir does and flies, and he started to fly, and so that freaked him out too. But that was nice, and so now knowing this, A Train he rushes to Ashley's office, tells her that the Deep and Noir know about him. They know that he's the leak now, and now he wants to run away. Now he's ready for her to go to Italy or wherever she said. But she, at this point, now she has changed her mind, and she reminds him that he has a tracking chip. So make sure you take your tracking chip out before you leave. Otherwise Homelander will find you. So that's where we end that. Mother's Milk and Butcher are at a bar after the fight, and Annie is approached by this woman who wants to take a selfie with her, and the selfie where they hug each other and takes the selfie. Nothing of it. Didn't think nothing of it. But it was what it was. She also asked Butcher about who Kaiser is. Then I'm talking about Andy. She asked Butcher who Kaiser is. Because she heard him speak his name during the attack in the office. Because Butcher had asked, okay, all right, Kaiser, Kessler, protect us, do what you did to kill the other suit that time, but he doesn't show up. And so Mother's Milk calls his ex-wife and tells her that he can't go with her to Belize. He also showed up and saved the day too with a machine gun in that office fight. But anyways, and he tells her that he can't go. And so we go back to Vault, and we see Firecracker attempts to comfort Homelander after he been informed that A Train is the actual leak. And he's crushed by this because he's like, man, how could he lie to me? How could he do this to me? And Sister Sage walks in. And when she walks in, she confessed that she knew about A Train being the leak. She knew that. And she knew all the whole time. But that it was all part of her master plan. Everything that A Train was telling the boys was part of her plan. She strategically told certain things so he can bring it back to them. Misdirection, if you will. And so Homelander wasn't hearing it. He didn't care. He fires Sister Sage from the 7 and sends her back to Detroit. And so as she leaves, and this is a funny scene, also heartbreaking in a way too, as she's leaving, the Deep and Noir, they're walking up the hallway. They're beaten up, battered, and bruised up from the fight. And she informs him that she's been fired. And she continues to walk off. And it's revealed that not only has Sage been sleeping with the Deep, but she's been sleeping with Noir. And what made it heartbreaking was the fact that the Deep, he turned to Black Noir. He was like, "Oh, you shove a probe in her brain too to sleep with her?" And he's like, "No," because Noir, he loved her. He said, "How can you do this? How can you leave? I love you. I'm in love with you." And he was like, "Yeah, so you shoved the thing in her brain?" And you're like, "I don't shove nothing in her brain." And Sage just looks at they look at each other, and he was like, "Oh man," because it dawned on him that Ambrosia was right. She was right, and he killed her for nothing. And I was like, "Man, that is messed up." So it's going to be interesting to see how this plan continue to play out, because the wheels are turning here. It's in motion. Whatever Sister Sage's plan was is in motion, and there's no stopping it. I wouldn't doubt it if she knew this was going to happen. And so she's 7 steps ahead of us. She isn't 2 steps ahead of everybody. She's like 7 steps ahead of everybody else. And so that's that. Now, towards the end of this episode, we go back to that Christmas special with Ryan. They're the puppets are singing and all this other good stuff, and he stops production. Now this is a live broadcast, so everybody's watching this. So he stops it and he calls out Vault, and they were gonna cut the feed, but he demanded them don't cut the feed. I got something to say, and he says on live television that kids should trust their family, before talking about his mother, Becca, and revealing to the world that she was married to Butcher, not Homelander. And Butcher proudly watched the broadcast. He was still at the bar, and it was a cool little moment that Ryan did this. It's cool now, but we know Homelander is not going to like that. But that wasn't the big twist of this episode. We get to the final scene of this episode where I think this was the final scene. Annie, she surprised Huey with a little, I guess you could say, a little soiree when she puts on the Starlight costume, and the two start to have intercourse, and they have sex, and then Huey goes to sleep, and we see Annie get up out the bed, and then we get the reveal. This isn't Annie. It's the shapeshifter from earlier. And I was like, wait, where did this come from? I'm like, how did this happen? What is going on? And then it dawned on me, with the help of the show, of course, because we get the flashbacks, and we see that she leaves the apartment with Huey's laptop and everything. But the real Annie, she's chained up in this location. Nobody knows. You don't know where she is. But the woman who took the selfie with her is the one who is the shapeshifter. That's how she was able to copy Annie. And so she later kidnapped her at the bar. And so that's how the episode ends, with kind of another little cliffhanger when we hear a noise wherever Annie is at. And she hears the noise and she turns and looks at it, and the episode goes black. This was one of the best episodes of the season, and I loved it for its setup. As you could tell, this is different. I didn't do this review like I've done any other review this season for The Boys, because this episode set up so much. And unlike other shows that I'm currently reviewing here on the KB Radio Network, this one knows how to set up a finale. Well, I might as well say it. I'm picking on it, but it is what it is. The Acolyte. The Acolyte just had their penultimate episode before the season finale, and it did nothing to help that show. It did nothing to help the finale. It's actually raised more questions than answers. Here, it didn't raise more questions per se. It just set up some really good answers to come. How we come to these answers, how we come with Sister Sage. What's the results of that? What's the results of A-Train when Homelander meets up with him? Because eventually Homelander is going to catch him. Homelander dealing with Ryan. What is going to happen there with Ryan making this confession on live TV? With this shapeshifter being in play here to kill the president, because there's nothing you can do. How are you going to stop somebody that you don't know what they look like? Or you don't know where they at, who they are, and can pop up anywhere. It's no way. But that's going to be interesting. Um, Chemical and Frenchie, their relationship. Where are we going with that? There's a lot going on, but it's going to be a fun ride next week. I cannot wait for next week. It's going to be a barn burner of an episode. I got all the faith in the world for it. So far, I haven't been disappointed by the boys, and I seriously doubt that we get it next week. And I certainly wasn't disappointed this week. I truly enjoyed episode 7, The Insider from the boys. I would like to know, what did you think of this episode? Did you enjoy it? Are you excited for the season finale? Are you sad that next season will be the final season? Season 5 will be it for the boys. And I'm hurt by that, man. I am so hurt. But at the same time, as this season goes on, as exciting as it is, as well written, directed, acted, and everything else this show is, it's getting to that point where else can you go with it? So they're leaving at the right time, I believe. But before all that happens, we still have next week's episode. I would like to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, everybody, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of The Boys, Season 4, Episode 7, The Insider. Can't wait to speak to you next week for our season finale of The Boys. Oh, man, I can't wait. I want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.